Welcome to the Dr. Leadership Podcast, where the DR stands for Driving Results. Our focus is weekly conversations around life and business relationships and the important leadership qualities for both. These concepts and qualities will help you drive positive results in both your business and personal lives. A weekly connection point to help business leaders develop individual contributors, managers, and executives on your teams. We also will tie in concepts around family focus and life lessons to help you drive success in your personal life. Welcome to the Dr. Leadership Show. Let's get after it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Dr. Leadership Podcast. The doctor is in. Hey, hope you're having an awesome day. Great day here. Beautiful weekend. Spring is really sprung here finally. Things are great. I'm super uber excited. First of all, 4-day weekend. Those are always good, right? Happy Memorial Day. A little belated here when this is recording. I'm a week out, so looking forward to the next week. Also very excited about my 2 new Leadership Lounge guests that are coming on. I've got one firmed up to get recorded late this week. That is with Commander Kirk Lippold. And I brought this up briefly last week on last week's episode. He was the commander of the USS Cole in Aden, Yemen, when that, it's a missile destroyer, big ship, $1 billion ship, refueling in the port in Yemen on October 12th of 2000, when Al-Qaeda attacked it with suicide bombers on a garbage ship and blew a 40-foot hole in it. And he's coming on the show, retired now from the U.S. Navy, 26 years in. Now is part of a brain trust in several government agencies and consulting groups. He's coming on, going to talk to us about how he got into the Navy, his newer book, I should say, and also walk us through that incredible day and talk about leadership under fire. Literally going to be an unbelievable episode. You got to check it out and sign up to get to it. It's out on our website, www.drleadershipresults.com. Click on the subscribe button and get out there. And for $5 a month, man, you get access to this. And the next person that's coming up right behind him, big business leader, CEO and president of Office Depot, Kevin Moffitt, has agreed to come on the show. Developed a good relationship with him over the last couple weeks. And very excited to have him on just what's happening in the retail world this year and the prior years, coming out of the pandemic, his background, his upbringing, and leading a multi-billion-dollar organization. Excited to have him on as well. Remember, you can give us feedback. He also will only be available on the subscription site. So sign up, www.drleadershipresults.com. Click on the subscribe button. Takes you out to our Patreon site. You sign up, minimal investment. You get early access at all these, my weekly connections, plus these wonderful Leadership Lounge conversations that we have Commander Kirk, Captain Kirk almost, but Commander Kirk, and also Kevin Moffitt, CEO and president of Office Depot, Office Max, coming on the show. Remember, if you want to give us some feedback, hit us up on the email. That is drleadershipresults@gmail.com. Would love some feedback there. Another great week of downloads. Picking up people all the time. Pass it on to your friends if you're having some fun. Get a kick out of it. Give me feedback if you aren't. If you hate it, move on. But hopefully I'm giving you a little bit of insight and a little bit of fun to listen to for 35 minutes a week. This week, I want to continue on. I saw an article. It's a Harvard Business Review article. I use that a lot to kind of inspire. And I've been facing it in my own business life right now. There's still a lot going on in people, and the pressures in this world are very strong, and burnout continues to be a problem here. And I'm going to discuss today Microsoft. It's an article actually in the HBR, Harvard Business Review, for those of us that know it, HBR. It's by Don Klinghoffer and also Katie Kirkpatrick Husk, and it goes into the latest Microsoft Work Trend Index report. And that is first of all, what is it? It's a global survey of workers across all sorts of different industries, multiple companies. So it's not focused in one spot. Your business, your industry is involved in it in some way. And it was really scary to see that over what they found in this thing, thousands and thousands of people were surveyed, over 53% of our managers report feeling burned out. And I mean, that is staggering. And it's higher than all other employee types, employees in general. So why is this happening? Pressure. That's why this is happening. Queen said it great. Little David Bowie back up there. We're all under tremendous amounts of pressure. It's not surprising that managers are burnout. Think about the last few years. If you're a leader, individual contributor too, small team, leader, executive, large team leader, manager of managers, just think about what we've gone through, right? The new norms after the pandemic. We had to We had to lead with empathy or empathically, but under increased demands. Fewer resources. How many layoffs have happened? Look what's happening in the tech sector right now. I've said for the last several months, this economy is going the wrong direction. Fed just hit another rate down to a quarter point, but it doesn't matter. Now they're saying, well, maybe it isn't going to cool off in June. They aren't going to reverse these things for a year. When they'll reverse it is when the election's coming up, trying to make things look a little bit better than they probably are. But we got a road to hoe here in front of us. And we're asking more of people with fewer resources, with little recognition. And recognition can be a pat on the back, an atta-girl, atta-boy, all of those things. Compensation, big one. But what's going on here? Cutting our way to prosperity, it's untenable. We cannot do this. It is not going to drive the results we want. We want happy, engaged employees, and we want people to feel good in their personal lives and their business lives. Business lives are a third of everyone's lives. They're half when you take out the sleeping hours, if you're getting a good night's sleep. Lots of studies there. Get your 8 or 9. But leadership in HR and compensation leaders, I'm talking to you here for a second. You need to understand and measure these components of burnout to better address it. You aren't thinking about collateral impacts when you're making decisions on how you're going forward. Lots of people are trying to change their entire business, right? It's a new world out there. Think of retail. I'm super excited to talk to Kevin Moffitt about that, president of Office Depot. How are you changing? What are the impacts? What do you see coming down the road? But any type of business, we need to measure these components of burnout and get them under control. There's a gal named Christina, Musluck. She's a pioneer of burnout studies. And she says, many times I start, what's the definition of what we're talking about here? Clearly define what the context is that we're talking about here. What Christina says burnout is a result of continually experiencing stress in the workplace. Leads to exhaustion, cynicism, and a perceived lack of accomplishment. That's a big sentence. Leads to exhaustion, cynicism, and a perceived lack of accomplishment. She says this all falls into 6 buckets, and I'm going to go through these because I think they're good buckets. I think she's on to something here. Smart lady. I'm sure she is on to something here. First bucket she talks about, and this is a big one, unsustainable workload. More with less. I'm going through this in my own organization now. Less people than we used to have out on the streets. We want pre-pandemic results, just like everybody's going after this, right? Trying to get back to the normal on results with less people. So more with less. I'm spending a lot more couch time, and I know managers around me, neighbors that are in leadership, we talk about things. They're spending a lot more time, what I call couch time. This is where you're taking First of all, you got to manage your own stresses. You got to manage your own psyche. And then you have to look down. I manage leaders, vice presidents, and directors, district leaders, managers that lead managers. But this is for managers that lead individual contributors too. You got to spend more couch time with them, right? They come to you with, I've talked about before, bringing monkeys to you. Sometimes that's bringing you a work problem they want you to solve. Those monkeys are what I've talked about in the past. What I'm talking about here is just life monkeys, man. Life's hard. Got problems at home. They've got situations with kids. They've got financial struggles. They've got work-related issues. All of those things, you have to help with that. That's why these leaders and managers are so flippin' stressed out. It's coming at them from all directions. People in the ivory towers of organizations, some of them are feeling like, well, just put more pressure on them. They got to do it. You better understand that you got to help them do it. What are the comp impacts? What are the compensation impacts that have happened to people over the last several years? Whenever I see the companies, they've announced a price increase, automobiles, price has gone up. Are they paying the sellers and the people fixing the equipment at the same rate of the price increase? Or did they just raise the prices for profitability to get the profit back? Raise it another 1% and take care of the people that you're demanding drive the results. Many times when you're talking about compensation, that more for less is, hey, going to pay you the same. Be thankful you got the job, right? To the managers, you can do it. And we all need to be motivating and motivational to them and give them the vision. But you also have to let them know that you appreciate what they're doing and that it costs more to live these days. Think of the hyperinflation. And maybe it's not defined as hyperinflation, but think of the damn big inflation that's been happening the last several years. I'm going to get into more of that in just a second. So all that goes into the unsustainable workload. The second thing Christina talks about is a lack of control. This one I don't have to go real deep on, but basically we need to empower field leaders and contributors. And also they feel the lack of control because life is spinning around them. I can't control what's going on. It's just stressing me out. It happens every single day. My wife and I talk about this a lot. We're both in leadership. The uncontrollables get you down. Number 3, Christina talks about, and this is the one I'm going to go off on here for a minute. Insufficient rewards for effort. People feel people know, not feel. People know they have more value to our organizations and other organizations that I'm not involved with than that they are being shown. Collateral impacts of smaller workforce, while the companies are trying to get back to pre-pandemic levels, that's the same for less compensation in the grand scheme of things. If you're being asked to do 30% more than you had to last year for the same compensation, the same reward system, that's going to stress people out. That's going to cause burnout. That's going to cause cynicism. That's going to cause them to feel that they aren't appreciated, and they're going to leave. I'm going to talk about what that means to your company here in a minute too. Hyperinflation. I said it a minute ago. Let's just walk down memory lane here for a few minutes. 2019, inflation was under 2%. 2020, inflation was 2.5% early on. Then we bumped to 8.5%, 9%, 10%. Then 2022 was back down to 6.5%, 7%. You take that all together, it's minimally 17% compounded. 2.5%, 3%, something like that. Then a 8 or 9, then a 6 or 7. You're at 17%. Things cost more in life. Groceries, gas, rent, power, utilities, vacations, flights, cars, everything costs more. You can't ask people to do 30% more and then they've taken a 17% pay cut at the same time. That's a net 47% loss to them. Do you realize that? Do we realize that as leaders? What we're saying? We can have to drive the results. I get that. Excuse me. But we also have to care for our people and make sure that we've put things in place to accommodate their needs as well. Just like the company, whoever you work for, wants to get to pre-pandemic results, so do your damn employees. They'd like to have the buying power of 2019 again, too. So when you do a price increase, factor in taking care of Jimmy and Susie and Bobby and Jill. You know, the ones that keep the lights on. When you increase something to it's like when they were talking about minimum wage increasing. And the minimum wage needs to be more than $7.35 an hour. Many of these people have put it in at $15. Well, then what happens is McDonald's and Hardee's and Starbucks, I mean, do you think a coffee's $7? Because Starbucks is just greedy? No, it's because their labor pool costs them $6 an hour to produce that drink. Because we raised the labor rate on them. So we got to take that into consideration. Got to comp your staff equal to the rate of inflation. 3% merit doesn't 3% merit for a couple years doesn't offset 17%. That's the minimum. You live in a coastal city, one of the big cities. Why in the world would you? I know you got family and all that, but my expense, crime, ugh. I'm very happy back in the Midwest. The inflationary impacts there, 25%, 30%. It's insane. Next thing Christina talks about, number 4. It's a good one too. Lack of supportive community. Silos. I'm guilty of this too. Roll out new plans and you just got to get it done. That's not very supportive. What I need to do is I need to sit down with my leaders and help them map it out. Let's develop a revenue walk. You as an individual contributor, when you get your new plan, the plan is the plan. Got to hand it out. But instead of losing your mind, take a deep breath. And here's a little coaching session. Start drawing a revenue walk out. There's a way there. I'm sure you weren't clicking on all cylinders last year. The other thing that's very true inside of sales is no good deed goes unpunished. You have your best year ever? Guess what? They add growth on top of that number, not what the plan was the year before. You have many people looking going, my plan's gone up 35%. Yeah, but the results are only having to go up 15% because you killed it last year. No good deed goes unpunished, unfortunately. But are you part of a supportive community? As a leader, make sure that you're doing it to your individual contributors and then demand it of those that are responsible for your well-being, your leaders and those executives. Talking to the executives out there now. Are you supportive? Everybody talks a good game. You know, everybody has the good social media post on ESG and DEI and all of these things. Are they moving the ball for your employees in reality? Or is it just virtuous? I don't know. That's up to you to answer each time. We all want people to... Well, I have a great diverse team. I'm very fortunate. Love them all. Don't have a bone against anybody in the world on anything like that. Color, creed, approach, religion, political outlooks. I don't care. I just want to be a good person to you. I hope you are too, to each other. But are we as executives inside our companies really caring for the people, or are we just giving some lip service there? It's probably somewhere in between. I do think that most executive leaders truly do care about their people. I'm not being cynical here. I want you to understand, I understand you care. But is it enough in this new world? It's changed, man. Our outlooks on things need to be a little different. Christina goes on next to lack of fairness. Now, I'm not a big person on believing that fairness is easily attained. Life is not fair. And I've said it before. I tell my kids, they would say something when I'd make some sort of decision or some sort of impact on their life around circumstances or repercussions. That isn't fair. And I would say fair is where you get corn dogs and cotton candy, man. Life is not fair. Go to the county fair if you want cotton candy and unicorn lifestyles. But a lack of fairness. Life isn't fair. However, you have to be fair to employees compared to others. In other words, you have to make sure that you aren't asking more out of one person than another for the same attributes or benefits that the company's given to them. It can get lost asking someone to do twice as much as someone else and paying them the same thing. That's a tough problem to overcome. And then number 6 by Christina is mismatched values and skills. And that's a really, really broad topic. I'll get deeper on some other time. But values matter. Culture matters. Does your company live by the values they portray on their social media sites? Or are we just being virtuous? That's for each of you to dig deep and self-reflect on. Are we walking the talk? Are we drinking the Kool-Aid ourselves? Or are we just putting acronyms on social media sites? I don't know. Each and every one's a little different. You hear me rustle my papers here? Damn good microphone is what that is. Expensive enough. So managers' workload, it's a huge problem. It's even a bigger burden since they handle their jobs and the increases mandated of them, plus the job of ensuring their employees get what they need. So when I'm looking at managers, they're doing their job and they're taking all the heat when you roll out a new year, a new situation, a new level of expectations. They got to figure out how to do it themselves. And then let's say their team's 10 people strong, then they sit and take 10 counterpunches from their own people. That's why managers get burnt out. They just look, they're replaceable. Maybe you think that your managers are replaceable. Are they really? I mean, sure, the company goes on, but what's the collateral impact on that? I'm going to speak on that in a minute. It's a big one, is what it is. Attrition has expense. Leaders and managers need more support now, but post-pandemic, based on the research, they say they're getting less coaching, they're getting less development for themselves and their people. I'm trying to get a big training session set up for all of my organization for the whole country this year. It's been 8-9 years since we've really gone deep into everything that we offer and getting them off-site and giving them some real good hands-on training. Continuous education. The world has changed a ton in the technology sector in 8-9 years. The world has changed a ton in how we go to market, how we interact with people in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. If you aren't giving continuing education and development to your people, quite frankly, that was the reason, that's what spurred me on and the impetus to start this podcast, is that I could see with the remote work and the work from home environment that we were going into, that you aren't getting daily interaction from what good looks like. And I'm not saying I'm the one that always has what good looks like. All my good stuff's been stolen. I attribute to someone else. I can take anything that you've liked that I've said, and I can tell you who told me. Not maybe exactly who told me, but I can tell you someone told me. Remember, experience allows you to avoid mistakes, but how you gain experience is through making a lot of mistakes. So I've made mistakes that have given me the experience, the feedback, the coaching from someone else to do this. We need to give more support than ever. And do you have that figured out on how you're going to support your people? You as an individual contributor, have you figured out how to self-motivate, how to self-develop as well? Because the marketing department is smaller than it used to be. Product marketing is half of what it used to be. So they aren't going to give you but half of what they used to. So we got to figure out how to help ourselves here, but as organizations and leaders and executives, we got to figure out how to continuously improve. If we ask of our doctors, our attorneys, our accountants, our nurses to go through continuing education every year, why wouldn't we expect it to be a part of our people staying efficient and effective and to drive towards this new world we're in? Can't get something for nothing, folks. So, how do you get your teams to thrive? Do your teams feel energized? Do they feel empowered? If they don't, what are we going to do that? What are we going to do to change that situation? How are we going to get them to thrive? You got to bring them into the fold. You got to talk to them. You got to over-communicate, round tables, bring them in, listen to them. They know what's going on the street. Bring the individual contributors in. Listen to them. As an individual contributor, raise your hand. Say, I'd like some time with you. I have 3 of those meetings this week. Someone doesn't understand what we've rolled out to them for expectations. This seems like a lot. Can I talk to you? May not change anything. Pretty confident I can't change the number. But I am going to listen you out. And then I'm going to try to figure out, how do I make you believe you can get to that number, and how can I help you attain that? That's what my job is to help them figure it out. The head coach of the Citadel has to figure out how they can potentially stand up against the giant of what is the Alabama Crimson Tide every year. They got to go down to Alabama every year, the Citadel, and play football against Alabama. That should be against the law. But every Division I football team has that little layup, whatever they want to call it, every year. And every year that 45-point underdog has to figure out how to go up there and not let their kids die. Basketball, whatever. Women's basketball, somebody has to go play UConn every year. They get a check for it. You got to do the same thing with your people. You got to figure out, how do I help them get over this and take it on? Here's some interesting data points here. Managers who manage contributors feel more cynicism than managers who manage other people. That's crazy. The reason is, as a leader, as you get more responsibility, this is what the study found. As a leader, as you get more responsibility, you feel like there's more meaning to your job, right? And to your role. They're giving me more responsibility. I got to keep this company afloat. I got to save the day. I got to get this fixed. You feel all those pressures come over the top of you. The world has got you under pressure. The world has got you under pressure. That was the first rock and roll, ZZ Top there. That was the first rock and roll concert I ever saw, and the first song they played when they came on stage still has an effect on me. But managers, the higher up you get, the more meaningful it is to you. You feel more responsibility, you feel more in the role. But this is not true in the field. The people down below you aren't feeling more connected. They're feeling less connected. They're feeling less valued. That's what all this is about. The burnout that is going on is going to lead to a loss of productivity and turnover. If you don't start to realize the collateral impacts that are coming by what you're asking of your people, what we're asking of our people, you are going to have detrimental impacts come in the form of turnover. I want you to think about this as a leader out there. What impact does turnover of your best producers mean to you versus the financial impact of paying a little more in wages? So how the P&L works, many of you know this, some of you may not, many of you may not care. But you have gross profit that comes in. That's the difference between what you bought something for and what you sell it for. Then you have what are called SG&A, expenses that hit that. Sales, general, and administrative. That's shipping, that's salaries, that's benefits, and that's variable compensation or commissions. And after that, you have a net profit. Then you have taxation and all sorts of other things that happen. This isn't an accounting firm class here, but you get it. Well, if I increase my SG&A, my expenses against my gross profit by 1%, that may cost the company $1 million in bottom line operating income. Let's say if I add 1% to the SG&A on variable compensation for sellers and salary increases for backroom workers and things of that nature, if I take care of my people to help offset inflation, I'm not saying 1% increase in pay, I'm saying 1% increase against the millions and millions and millions of dollars the company brings in could lead to a 5%, 7% increase in compensation for people to at least help them. Well, if you lose the top 5% of your sellers or the top 5% of your employees, whatever role they're in, and you come in at 90% of plan because your backroom people, you don't have as good a customer interaction on problem solving, and if your best sellers leave and you come in at 90% of plan, remember, that could cost you $10 million in bottom line because the GP from those performances and that retention by your backroom employees are gone. So if you're supposed to bring in $1 billion and you come in at $900 million and you're 35% GP and that extra $100 million because you lost your best 75 salespeople, 50 salespeople, 35% times $100 million, it's $35 million. Maybe you should have paid them each 25 grand more and held on to them, because now you got to backfill it. The collateral impact there is you need lots of time for that to be fixed. We have to understand that those that are in front of the customer, front line, both in the support mechanism and in those trying to make the deal happen, are what keep the lights on. Everyone's important. The executive's important too. But we got to understand that the fruits come from those at the trees, not from those that own the farm. It comes from those interacting with the produce itself. So I said there's some interesting data here. A manager who is exhausted leaves 1.8 times more often than those that say they aren't exhausted currently. A manager who is cynicism, leave 3 times more often. There's a lot of that in the world right now. There's a lot of cynicism. We don't trust our governmental agencies. A lot of reason not to there. Read the news. Don't watch the news. Go read. Check your sources. But somebody that's cynical, a manager that's cynical, leaves 3 times more often. Those that don't feel professional efficacy, they leave 3.4 times more than someone that does not feel that negative impact. And then you find the trifecta, right? Since we're in the middle of the racing season, Preakness runs and has run in the Kentucky, Belmont coming up. If you have all 3, you're 5.3 times more likely to leave voluntary attrition, or as we laymen call it, quit. Now, that's going to be detrimental to an organization if you don't get that fixed. So companies need to provide to managers the following. Need to give them meaning. They got to believe in the culture. They got to believe in what you're trying to accomplish. Bring them into the fold. Talk to them. You got to continue to give them learning opportunities and career development. Are you investing in your people? Or are you investing in virtue signaling on social media sites? Take the money that you're using to market to this crazy world and put it into your people. They'll drive better results than any social media post. Are you providing them flexibility? What's the work environment like? That's a big one. If you want to compete with your competitors from a personnel standpoint and get the best people, you got to have some flexibility in life. We got to get back to the offices where it's pertinent. This sitting at home forevermore on many jobs is not going to make it happen. Got to get out and make it happen. Have you provided psychological safety and support? And as a leader, we need to show vulnerability. Whoa, it's a tough one. We have to show vulnerability ourselves. If you want them to feel psychologically safe around you, you got to let them know that you're willing to talk about your struggles and your challenges too. You got to give them self-care, right? You got to give yourself first self-care as well as a leader, but as a manager, give self-care. Great analogy here. What do they always tell you on an airliner when they're going through the safety checks before you take off? They pull out the little oxygen mask, pull down on it, put yours on first before you help an infant or the one next to you. The reason is, if you don't take care of yourself, 2 of you might be dead. Take care of yourself, then you're in a position where you can effectively help someone else. You gotta put your mask on first. You gotta set boundaries. Talk about this all the time. Talked about boundaries and guardrails in life. Andy Stanley, great talk on guardrails. Go out and look it up. And then 6th, companies must listen to their managers. They must take feedback. They have to understand these are the folks, along with the individual contributors, that keep the lights on. And why do you have to do that? Because they are awesome. Help them keep that shit up for you. Talk next week.